Alright, so full disclosure, folks, there's really not a lot of brand new metal that has really caught my eye or captured or demanded my attention, with the exception of the 9 Psycho Sinner albums that Jeremy finally fucking released. It took him forever. He created a fucking PR shitstorm, but here we are. They're finally out. Here's the thing, though. He was true to his word, and he released 9 fucking albums. That's a lot of fucking information to swallow and process, so, I'm gonna take a little bit of extra time handling those albums and handling that inevitable multi-part album review. So in the meantime, and since there's literally nothing else coming out this weekend that, again, I'm really digging, why don't we fucking go outside the comfort zone with this sophomore studio album from Metalcore, Mathcore, and post-hardcore unit SeeYouSpaceCowboy. Formed in 2016 out of the ashes of several other lesser-known metalcore and hardcore bands, SeeYouSpaceCowboy has quickly risen to prominence in the past 5 years, with their debut album, The Correlation Between Entrance and Exit Wound, being hailed as one of the best metal albums of 2019 by Metal Hammer, and other works by the band such as their compilation album and of course the band's very inclusive Politics and Beliefs have caught the attention of mainstream critics and YouTube celebrities like Anthony Fantano and Finn McKenty. My good bud Flight of Icarus from Metal Trenches has been singing this band's praises as well lately, hailing this album as a time capsule of everything he loved from like the 2000s post-hardcore and metalcore scene, and hailing the band specifically as being perhaps one of the most exciting and interesting metalcore bands in the scene today. So I decided, fuck it, this week I'm giving in to curiosity. I'm gonna try something new. I'm gonna go outside my comfort zone, and you know what? You know what? You know what? I'm actually pretty happy I did that. This album's kinda great. I mean, it's certainly got some fucking issues, just to be clear, and we will discuss them in great detail when the time comes, but all things considered, yeah, this is a pretty strong record. It's clever, it's smart, it's very well produced, it's brimming with anger and anxiety and raw emotion. The lyrics are very poetic and vulnerable. Musically, there are a lot of angular mathcore-style rhythms and riffs and passages, and some devastating classic metalcore breakdowns intertwined with post-hardcore and pop-punk and screamo flavors. Influences from Norma Jean, Under Oath, and very early Converge and Daughters are apparent throughout this entire record. The band even managed to whip out some genuine star power for this record, with Every Time I Die's Keith Buckley appearing on the opening cut, Life as a Soap Opera, 26 years running, while Under Oath's Aaron Gillespie appears on a track called Intersecting Storylines to the Same Tragedy. The latter of which, believe it or not, stands as one of the strongest cuts on the entire record. This just bleeds classic metalcore and post-hardcore flavor, but in the best way possible. With Arms That Bind and Lips That Lock is another favorite of mine on the record. I like how frantic and chaotic it is at first, almost as if the band is like sonically translating some kind of emotional mental breakdown, and I love how it leads to one of the heaviest musical breakdowns on the entire record. Contrasted with soaring anthemic cleans and shimmering guitars and devastating percussion, it makes for a genuinely pretty cathartic climax. I'm also really enjoying the crazed and claustrophobic mathcore vibes of Anything to Take Me Anywhere But Here, which channels old-school Dillinger Escape Plan with a series of almost nonsensical frantic grooves and rhythms. Its jarring and deceptive turn into minimalistic alternative rock near the end as well is genuinely pretty effective and inspired. It's the kind of thing I would expect to hear on like a Turnstile record. And then there's the Romance of Affliction, doubling as the album's title track and its closing number. It is packed with somber and melancholic guitar passages, almost reminiscent of some shimmering atmospheric post-rock or even shoegaze, and it's contrasted with some very heavy post-hardcore flavors and some vocals that, for lack of a better term, are very, very whiny. And I don't mean this in a derogatory sense, I mean this in a literal sense. It literally sounds like motherfuckers are crying on this track, and it makes for a genuinely pretty powerful moment on the record. Connie's whined vocals, as I guess we're calling them, I'm sorry if that sounds crude or offensive, but there's just not really a better term in my opinion, aren't always super effective. In fact, they can prove to be a touch irritating on some of the first few cuts on this album. But I do constantly appreciate the conviction, the passion, the emotional honesty and rawness of these vocals, especially when coupled with these very dark and revealing lyrics. Take, for instance, this section from the aforementioned Romance of Affliction. Shed your second skin, it was always too much for you. Let the poison in, you crave the pain and lose control. If the body aches, your mind might drift away for a long time. Is it asking too much for one last taste while seeking shelter? Just on its own, that section almost reads like an excerpt from a long-lost Lou Reed or Leonard Cohen poetry book, but is made all the more poignant and genuinely brutal when you realize that during the production and recording of this record, Connie overdosed on drugs in a deliberate attempt to take her own life. I applaud Connie 100% for persevering with the creation of this record, for transforming that darkness, that pain, into something healthy and potentially helpful for other young people going through the same things that she might be going through. Because of this, there's weirdly a real sense of unity and family and brotherhood and sisterhood flowing throughout this album. It makes it all the more cohesive and powerful, I think. There's a part of me that wants to give this album a 4 out of 5, but I can't really do that because, in my opinion, the first few tracks are just kind of clumsy and awkward and generally ineffective in comparison to the rest of the material we've talked about. The track Sharpen What You Can, featuring rapper Shaolin G in particular, I thought was kind of cringe, if we're being honest. I'm not really a fan of this very anxious and angular fusion of like post-hardcore and like rap metal and hip-hop. It's just not working for me at all. But I will give this album a pretty enthusiastic 3.5 out of 5. I got a lot more out of this than I expected. I wasn't expecting to like it at all, let alone pull this much out of it emotionally. I think it is very well produced, very well constructed for the most part. Its emotional rawness, its emotional honesty is something I don't really feel like I see a lot anymore from metalcore and post-hardcore. So much of the music coming out of this genre feels so synthetic, so derivative, so generic, and in comes SeeYouSpaceCowboy with something extremely cathartic, extremely honest, and extremely no bullshit. It's very easy to see why this band has turned so many heads in such a small amount of time. If you're looking for something a little bit more fresh and unique and powerful from post-hardcore and metalcore, mathcore, whatever the fuck you want to call it, definitely check this out. Even if you're like myself and you're somewhat skeptical, give it a shot, honestly. Albums like this are the reason why I like to go out of my comfort zone on the Metal Meltdown. Sure, sometimes you end up with something pretty fucking lame like Sleep Token or Ice Nine Kills, but sometimes you find something genuinely pretty exhilarating and interesting and unique. Like SeeYouSpaceCowboy. I look forward to seeing how this band continues to evolve in the future. I look forward to seeing what weird directions their music will take emotionally and sonically. 3.5 out of 5, a very enthusiastic one at that. Check it out. It's pretty good, way better than I thought it would be at least. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately in case you somehow aren't already. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.